Hello everyone, welcome back to the studio at Flow Athletic. So guys, welcome to Comvita's at-home wellness series. It's a joy to be back with you second week in a row. I'm helping today to show you how we can connect ancient wisdom with a timeless wellness for the modern age. And there's so many ancient practices that are still so relevant today. One of them is for sure yoga, breath work, both of which we'll explore today. But I wanted to start with a little quote this week by Plato. And the words go like this: "The dance of all the arts is the one that most inspires the soul." Let's just close your eyes for a second and listen to the vibration of those words again. The dance of all the arts is the one that most inspires the soul. So the way in which we move our body, dance our body, move our body, create shapes, create conscious movements with the body, is inspiring, it's motivating personally for me when I move, when I practice yoga. It's a way to create, it's a way to inspire, it's a way to feel good, it's a way to take care of my body. And I think it's a really nice sentiment to take with us into any kind of practices that involve movement, to keep it really conscious, keep it really deliberate, and to remember that this is such a powerful thing that we've been given to experience this human experience, this body, and to look after it and move it and make it feel good. And I always say that practicing yoga, even meditating alone is good, great, but when we practice together and in groups, which we're starting to do a lot more, as the weeks progress, and online with your friends. When we practice together, it's great, it's awesome. So make sure that you share shapes with your friends and any of the stuff that you learn here today with your friends. So speaking of that, we are going to come into one of my favorite little postures. It's an arm balance, and it's called Bakasana, or crow pose. Now the benefits of Bakasana, or crow pose, is that it builds focus, concentration, strength, resilience. We strengthen the core, we strengthen and tone the arms. And there's this secret little yoga superpower that I'm going to teach you tonight called Mula Bandha. And you can use it to move with a little more ease and grace around the yoga mat, or ease and grace in whatever it is that you're doing in life. So all that you're going to need tonight is some space. If you've got a yoga mat, fantastic, great. If you don't have one, no worries. It's a little bit playful, okay? And I'm going to give you a handful of postures that you can use to make your way towards crow. Whether you get into crow tonight, it doesn't or not, it really doesn't matter. So these postures are going to help you to kind of progress and make your way there eventually. So there'll be a blog post where you can go and you can remember and check out all the poses again, so don't worry about remembering everything tonight. If you've got any questions as we go along, just come in, type them up, and I'll make sure that I get to them towards the end. If you do have any questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. So hopefully you're ready to go. Oh yeah, this is the studio of Flow Athletic. Welcome. I'm the co-founder and director of yoga here, so it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio tonight. Let's get into this. Yeah, let's do it. So the first little posture that we're going to take is actually seated, because I'm going to explain something. So the breath work, which is going to help us, and the little yogi superpower. So we have what we call Mula Bandha, or the root lock. And we can access this root lock if you close down your eyes and play along with me. Take your hands wherever it's comfortable and just get a sense for the quality of the rhythm of your breath as it is, just in its current state. And if you were to play along a little further, could you notice that the inhalation feels like it rises, it lifts, it expands, and that on your exhalation there's this sense of dropping, sinking, grounding. Now start to deepen the breath, where possible in and out of the nose. And on an exhalation, draw your navel gently into the spine and up a little. That's one part of this little super yogi power. We call this Uddiyana Bandha. But then the other part of it, again, take a generous breath in. A long breath out, draw your navel gently in and up, and then lightly lift the pelvic floor. So there's this gentle squeeze of the navel in and up, and the pelvic floor lightly lifts. It's really subtle. It's almost just imagining this light lift of the pelvic floor, which kind of sits in between your anus and your genitals. Okay? So navel gently in and up, pelvic floor lightly lifts. This is Mula Bandha, that root lock, the pelvic floor lightly lifting. We're going to use that at the end of the exhalations to eventually, and so I'll demonstrate crow first of all, to eventually come into this shape right here, crow pose. But first, let's find ourselves in a downward facing dog, which looks a little bit like this. Hands around shoulder distance, feet around hip distance apart. So once you find your way into that posture, just really ground down into the hands. Spread nice and wide through the fingers. It's like your fingers are spreading wide like dinner plates at the top of your mat. You're easing your sit bones right on up and back. This is a really nice way to decompress the spine. And let's start to breathe, just like we did before seated. So at the end of the exhalation, you're drawing the navel gently in and up. The pelvic floor lightly lifts. By the way, if your spine feels a bit compressed or the shoulders are tight, just bend the knees a little bit. Create that space through the shoulders. All right, lift your heels and ripple forwards into a high plank position so that your shoulders are directly over the wrists, so that the thighs are engaged, the kneecaps lift. So it's like you're wearing a really sweet corset around the waist. If this is too much here on your wrists or your core, just lower your knees gently to the ground like this. Otherwise, the objective here is to build a little strength of core. Keep breathing and feeling and smiling. And lift the sit bones up very slowly. Press back into a downward facing dog. Now we're going to do that with breath. So inhale, lift the heels and ripple forwards into a high plank. Shoulders over the wrists. To the count of 3, lift the hips up and press back into downward facing dog. 3, 2, you're probably already there. 1. One more time, ripple forwards, high plank. Not only is the core engaged, the thighs are engaged. You're pressing into the earth and you can feel the magic of the earth. Press back and then move back into downward facing dog. Let's float the right leg up and back behind us. Spread through the toes of your right foot. Really let that right foot come alive. Exhale to a lizard lunge. So place your right foot to the outer edge of the right hand. Squeeze your left leg straight, sink the hips down and broaden your collarbones. And then just move around a little bit side to side here. And eventually lower your left knee down to the ground. You could sink the hips a little further down, lift the chest up. Instead of staying really stagnant and still, I like to, find that space by moving side to side. And then you could stay there or come down onto your forearms. And if you're all the way down there, you may as well curl your left toes under, press back into your left heel. And there's this sense of squeezing the inner thighs towards each other. Your right big toe and knee are pointed in the same direction. They're kind of pointed towards the top right edge of the mat or right corner of the mat if you have one. We can imagine an imaginary mat if you don't have your yoga mat.
So right now we're opening into the hips. If you've lifted that back leg, you're strengthening the legs, and we're creating space between the shoulder blades. One more breath. All right, lower your left knee. If it's lifted, place your hands and step forwards into Malasana or Yogi squats so that the left toes are turned out as well. We sink the tailbone down, bring the palms together. Try and get a nice long spine. It doesn't always work out that way, and sometimes the heels feel lifted. It can feel really awkward. Just do what you can. You can always place, if you have one, a block underneath you or some kind of cushion. Bring the palms together, send your elbows into the inner knees, and then you're pressing the knees into the elbows. A little bit of that resistance creates some sensations in the hips. All right, and breathe in through the nose. As you exhale, draw your navel gently in and up and lift the pelvic floor. 2 more breaths like that. Generous breath in. And a long breath out. Navel to spine, pelvic floor lightly lifts. 1 more breath. Keep pressing your elbows into the knees and lift your hips up a little bit. And use the pelvic floor to aid that lift, that lifting gently up to lift the hips. You'll feel a little fire in the hips, perhaps. Keep pressing into whatever parts of your feet are grounded. And then sink yourself back down. Place the hands and move back into a high plank position. Shoulders over the rest. You can move straight back to down dog or cycle through a little vinyasa just to warm the body up some more into a cobra or upward facing dog. Oh, feels so good to move and exhale back into downward facing. Let's take that left side. Left leg rises as you inhale. Exhale, left foot to outer edge. Use your core to do that. Very important, like you're doing it in slow motion. So you're deliberately placing that foot. Squeeze the right leg straight and take a little moment to rock yourself side to side to create and discover space there in your hips. And eventually lower that right knee down to the ground. Sink the hips down, lift the chest up. And then stay right there. There could be plenty of sensation going on for you to breathe into. Or you come down onto your forearms. You might as well curl the right toes under, lift the right knee, and press firmly back into that right heel to feel all kinds of sensation in the hips. So we'll all feel this in different places. That's what makes us so awesome, our uniqueness, our different shapes of bodies and formations of bones and ligaments. And so just kind of do what works for you. You feel an edge, which is an interesting sensation, and then you breathe into it. How's your breath? Are you breathing each breath fully without anticipating next inhalation or exhalation? It's almost like you're savoring each round of breath. Eventually lowering the right knee, if it was lifted, come on up out of that little scenario and forwards into Malasana or Yogi squat again. Toes turn out, sink your hips down, broaden your collarbones, elbows to inner knees, knees to elbows, generous breath in. Through the nose, pour it out slowly, drawing your navel gently in. Pelvic floor lightly lifts. Let's lift the hips here. And pause and hold and press elbows into knees and knees into elbows, and use the pelvic floor and your awareness of it to lightly lift the hips and maintain that lift. Steady, soft gaze. That's relevant what we do with the eyes. We want to steady and quieten down the eyes, which quietens down the mind and builds that focus, that presence. And slowly lower the hips down to the ground. All right, place your hands, step back, high plank as you inhale. Tip yourself forward, cycle through if you want to move a little bit, cobra or upward facing, lingering in that back bend if you've taken it, as long as you feel to. And eventually back into downward facing. Let's take a generous breath in together. And a long, long breath out. Inhale, lift up high onto the tippy toes. Exhale, bend the knees. Oh, no breath. So you squeeze the navel in, lift pelvic floor. Can you jump forwards into yogi squat? Nice and quietly. Let's try that one more time. See if you can do it so quietly. It's almost like you're a little kid upstairs. You're meant to be asleep. And you're practicing these little jumps and you don't want mum and dad to wake up. All right, so at the end of the exhalation, navel to spine, pelvic floor, lightly lifts, jump forwards. Quiet. Doesn't always work out that way. So, crow pose. This is what's going to happen, guys. Hands are out in front, around shoulder distance apart. Fingers are spread like those big dinner plates, just to make you hungry. And then lift your hips up. Now, there's so many different ways to get into crow, so I'm just showing you one way. I heel toe the feet towards each other. The heels kiss, the toes turn out like Charlie Chaplin legs. One of the tricks is to look further forwards of the hands, right? So you're looking forwards, don't look down, otherwise you'll turn into splat asana. Lift the hips up so you're right up into the balls of the feet, and can you take your knees up into the triceps and up into the underarms? So you create, as you shift your weight forwards and look forwards, you create a little shelf for your knees with the triceps. So you're up on the tippy toes. Maybe that's where you stay tonight. Find your breath, access that navel to spine action and mula bandha action, light lift of pelvic floor. Really squeeze the belly. And then look forwards, and perhaps you lean forwards further than you think you can. There's always a little more to lean. Lift one set of toes, perhaps the other set of toes. Press into the earth. Feel that space between your shoulder blades widen. And breathe and feel your strength no matter where you are. And then very slowly touch down. And then have a little moment just to feel whatever's going on in the body after that. A lot of energy, warmth, inspiration. You could roll the wrists around a little bit just to release them. It's really important to look after the wrists, especially after any kind of arm balance, down dogs. So well done, guys. Those are a couple little postures that can help you move towards Bakasana crow pose. Make sure that you check out the comvita.com.au/timeless wellness in particular. That's the specific page where you'll be able to jump online soon, and I'm not going to say exactly when because I'm not exactly sure, if it's tomorrow, but you'll be able to get all those postures and practice them and share them with your friends, because remember, solo is great, together is awesome. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure that you stay tuned to this Comvita page as well, just for tons of awesome content. Thank you so much for joining me, and if you do have any questions, let's see. Hopefully you're just kind of enjoying the feeling of all those postures. Hey Luke, Coffee Girl, Violet Hams, that's an awesome Instagram name. All right, no questions. Great, you all nailed it, I'm assuming. Have an awesome night, guys, and I'll see you soon.